This program was made possible by the grassroots volunteers of United Monroe.
Hello and welcome to Hello Hudson Valley. I'm Emily Colbert, your host, and I am very excited to have with me today trustee of the Village of Monroe, Neil Dwyer.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much. Give me an opportunity to speak to the folks.
Yeah, it's terrific. And I thought we would begin with just an introduction of who you are, or how long you've lived in Monroe, a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. I lived in Monroe since 1987, and I've run a privately owned business since then here in the Village of Monroe. And I've always had a very strong attachment to Monroe. My family's been here since 1962, and I've always enjoyed Monroe as a whole. There's just been so many things that the village has had and the town has had for its residents, and I always felt a very strong connection to it. So when the opportunities came to become part of it in a civic way, I embraced any way I could, whether it was the Boy Scouts or whether it was something of a pond cleaning, around the lake, pick me up kind of thing. I was always there. I enjoy it, and I enjoy being part of the folks.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we feel very. I speak for many when I say we feel very lucky to have you as an elected official in the Village of Monroe. And let's talk a little bit about how that came about. There were 2 seats open on the village board.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Actually, there were 2 seats available. I was approached to run, and I take that type of work very, very seriously. And I asked if it meant an open-mindedness, if it meant a dialogue, and if it did, I was in. And I was assured it was, and I ran. And a lot of folks came out to vote. We did very well. The vote count came back, and interestingly enough, I was the top vote getter across all the different candidates, which I felt really said a lot about the Village of Monroe and its concern for where we were heading. And I enjoyed that, and I was glad to be part of that process.
Yeah, there were 5 candidates. Yes.
5 candidates
running for 2 seats.
2 seats.
And you were the highest vote getter of all 5.
Of all 5.
And, in fact, got the most votes historically. Of any other trustee candidate.
That's true.
Which is really impressive. So bravo to you.
Wow.
And you're also a member of United Monroe.
Yes, I am.
The grassroots organization and part of the executive committee of our organization, which
is amazing in itself. Obviously, you being our champion leader, we enjoy a great dialogue amongst a great bunch of people, really talented people who have incredible passion for their community and for the people and where we are and where we're headed.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. We've stayed on track, on point, and I think that speaks volumes. And we've gotten a lot of people to come on board. They hear the message, and they like the message, and they support the message.
And so many people from so many different backgrounds and political affiliations and
right. This transcends, I think, all of that. It really does. What we're facing and what we all want to see. Mm-hmm. I mean, many of us have, in some cases, a long history here in Monroe. Some of us just came to Monroe. But we all share a value for our children's and their children's school and their extracurricular activities, and we want to see a civic-minded community that cares about each other, and I think that really transcends politics. Mm-hmm. It has no place here.
It's so true, especially on such the local level, like a village.
Right, absolutely.
And back to the village, why don't you share a little bit about what's going on in the village of Monroe right now. I know you haven't been on the board for very long, just
Right.
since March, isn't it?
Yeah, March 18th was election day.
March of 2014.
Of 2014, exactly. So I'm on about a little more than 9 months now, I guess. And it's been a big learning curve. I found a lot of things that were very new to me in that process, and I embrace all of them. And you need to. You need to understand. You need to dialogue with the people. You need to understand what people are asking for. And interestingly, I've found that politics does enter into the fray at times. And unfortunately, I say it needs to be monitored closely. And in my case, I'm not a politician. I'm actually apolitical. I think actually I'm more interested, there are issues at stake and I think they need to be addressed, and I go after it. And that's as simple as that for me. So I ran, I won, I was sworn in just about April 1st of 2014, and right now the village is dealing with some issues. And I say issues in terms of we've got a dam that everybody knows and loves here in Monroe, and currently it has some issues with its stability. So the DEC has requested us to remediate any issues, concerns for safety and of the dam.
And you call it a dam, but everyone knows it who drives through Monroe is the waterfall,
The waterfall,
essentially.
absolutely,
Down
right on the mill pond.
in the center of the village.
Exactly.
The
And
ponds.
that dam has been around for better than 200 years. It was actually man-made for the purposes of powering a grist mill, which was run by the Smith family, one of the earliest, if actually the earliest settler here in Monroe. And it's been around for a long time, and one of the things I ran on, I like to call it affectionately as my Tiananmen Square. I believe it needs to be kept in place. I think it's important. It brings a vitality to the downtown area. So many people like walking around the lake and seeing the falls and everything that it's given us. And so we're going to go ahead and make sure that that's taken care of. One of the things that we had to deal with was currently it's classified as a Class B, and we just recently, last week actually, received a letter from the DEC which declassified it to an A, which means that the concerns for the dam are less than originally thought of.
Good.
And that will help us in the cost of remediation.
Of renovation, yeah.
Exactly, tremendously.
Good.
Because every dollar is so important. And
Especially in a village budget.
Right,
Villages
exactly.
are smaller than towns.
They're smaller. We have two major contractual obligations. We have a great Department of Public Works and a great police department, which we all enjoy having. They're just amazing groups of men and women. And what we need to do is to fund these things. And when things like the dam come up, or the revitalization as another issue in the downtown area, you know, things just don't always stay in top condition. And what you've got to concern you is how do you stay on top of that? So we have a second issue now where we're trying to revitalize the downtown, hopefully, and to create a better environment for our businesses, which we really embrace and want to keep in the downtown area. So those are important, two major issues for us right now.
Right. It's excellent. I'm glad to hear that the dam is going to stay.
It's going to stay.
I'm a village resident myself, and one of the reasons why I really wanted to move to Monroe was the aesthetics of the ponds and the waterfall, which I live 2 blocks away from. So
Right.
So I'm very pleased to hear that.
It's man-made, but it's one of our natural wonders.
It's history. It's a piece of history.
It's a major piece of
And
our
it's
history.
attractive. And
It is attractive.
those stones, it's an all hand-laid stone wall
Absolutely.
retaining the pond with the waterfall
Yep.
cascading down, and it's
No one else has that.
It's unusual, and
It's a tremendous asset to our village.
I agree.
And I think actually throughout the county, many people come into the county, from the county, come into the village and park their car and walk the lakes. You know, everybody's trying to get healthy, and they find themselves in our village.
That's true.
Which is really important for our downtown, for our businesses and our restaurants. So we want to make sure and encourage that, and we think by doing the renovation of the dam and the surrounding areas around the ponds, including the downtown, that will make it more appealing to people coming in.
Right. Now, I know we hadn't actually discussed bringing this topic up, but since you were talking about revitalization, it occurred to me that this is a giant piece of the downtown of the Village of Monroe, the movie theater.
Yes.
And I know that you attended the town board meeting on Monday night.
Sure.
That I attended. And for those people at home who are unaware, our town board, now regardless of how our guest trustee Dwyer feels about this matter, I can share my personal feelings about it. The town board of Monroe purchased the movie theater at auction a few years back, much to the disapproval of many of the citizens in Monroe, who felt that the movie theater building, being a fairly new building, and this is not an old crumbling or even a historic building that needed to be renovated and maintained, and it's just a brand new six-cinema multiplex theater in the heart of the village, and the town bought it, and they didn't have a plan. They said maybe they'd make town offices, maybe they would have some kind of civic center. They weren't sure. But they spent $880,000 taxpayer dollars to buy this building when there were two other bidders at the auction that would have purchased it and kept it on the tax rolls, kept it as a revenue-generating movie theater. And this has been a kind of an ongoing battle in our town for the last few years. There were a couple of lawsuits. The town won both, but the public didn't think they were fair decisions, and I happen to agree with that opinion. And now we're at the point where the town is claiming to want to open up what they're calling the Town of Monroe Arts and Civic Center. Now, has the town been in touch with the village board about this proposition? And
they haven't necessarily come aboard with us or asked us to come aboard. There was some dialogue we received from Supervisor Doles asking us to maybe, if we had some thought, we may want to share with him, and we responded in kind that by all means let us know what and where you need, and we'd be happy to attend the meeting or a workshop, and we would help you to address some of the needs of the village residents in that proposal, because it is in our downtown. It's right smack in our downtown.
Right, and I remember Mayor Purcell saying a few years back when the building was purchased that this building was to be kind of the cornerstone of the comprehensive plan for the downtown. This was to be...
It was a major component of
the main
our
focus.
That's right, exactly. It's one of the ways that you bring in people. You know, when we think about what's happened where the big boxes have come in and brought folks and taken them away from the downtown areas, where I can tell you honestly that maybe 15 short years ago that certainly wasn't the case. Most, if not all, of your business was concentrated in the downtown areas. These larger stores and these other venues have come up, and it's pulling people out of the downtown village. So the movie theater, yes, absolutely was an important component of our master plan and comprehensive plan that was just recently adopted not a short while ago. The problem with the town doing as you suggest, as you said, not suggest, but as you said, was that for us, in fact, it was taking it off the tax rolls. You know, there was some thought to, I guess they had an idea. The idea was never vetted through the village. They did what they needed to do, or felt they needed to do, and didn't share it with us here in the village. And it's important to note that since it is one of our hubs, one of our anchor points, we would have liked to have known what the plan was. And when you have fixed assets or ratables for our village, that being one of them, it was major. It was a major hit to our school district tax base. It was a major hit to our town as well, and to our village, most importantly, for at least as far as I'm concerned. So that needed to be looked at, and it wasn't. So when we look at what we have to offer, the village is a finite amount of space, and in that we have ratables that we collect, and that's how we provide the services that we do in the village. And when one comes off, that money has to be made up. So that's a challenge, and I think that was a little short-sighted on their side to
Agreed.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I remember after the purchase, I did some research, and I remember calling the school district to find out how much revenue the school obtained from that business.
Sure.
And they said it was $40,000 a year.
Just in school.
Just in school tax.
That's right.
So I don't know what that means for the village, but I imagine that it was a decent amount of money.
It's a decent amount of money.
Lost.
Right. And the thing is, in our downtown area, the town currently has now 3 buildings under municipal control, which are now all off the tax rolls.
Right.
Okay, and when you have that in a finite space, you need to look at that, you know, and weigh out the benefit. Certainly, one of the things in deciding what was the best benefit for us, you have to realize that when you're paying a certain amount of money to acquire the property, and then you have to renovate it to a specific use, and then you have to support it and staff it and heat it and so forth like that. All that comes at an expense. So the benefit of that would come from people hopefully being able to view a movie. But we don't know what that number is. We don't have any good data that I know about or that I'm aware of that supports what the revenue coming in will be, even if it were flat, even if it didn't make a nickel worth of profit, even if we don't even know that. We do know that the money expended so far is in excess of $1 million.
We know that.
So that's something we need to be concerned about, and
Sure
hopefully
is.
the town has become acutely aware of it. As you said, the town did have some ideas early on about what they thought they might use the building for, and the public, which gave a tremendous outcry of opposition toward a lot of the possibilities or uses that they had thought about, recanted, I think, a bit and started to rethink their model. But I think each time that they rethought their model, I don't think they really came up with a good business plan.
No, and
to
even
support
when
it.
they rethought their model, they weren't asking the public. There was no public input
No,
requested.
even the workshops, the dialogue.
No,
not
there was
really.
no dialogue
No.
whatsoever. And
No. All they needed to do was look at our comprehensive plan, even, which would have spoke to that,
Right,
what that
that need.
theater. That's right, exactly. So.
Now, what about the budget? I know that you're currently in budget discussions and budget workshop mode right now in the Village of Monroe.
We are. We're actually beginning next week. Our fiscal year begins on June 1, ends May 31st. And we have to adopt a budget at a certain point in time. And this coming week, we start our budget workshops. There's a couple of things that are going to affect that dramatically, or potentially dramatically. We don't really know just yet, but one of them being the contractual obligations. As I said, we have a DPW, Department of Public Works, as well as our police department, 2 vital important agencies that we have in our village. And we have certain requirements that we need to meet by obligation, by contract. Additionally, we also have expenses that are constantly growing. Everybody sees it in their private sector work, insurances, we have employees, all those things just keep growing. And as government grows, so does the cost to support it.
Right.
So we're dealing with that. So one of the main goals, obviously, with the budget workshops is we've got to keep our budget as tight as possible by still bringing in everything we can within a certain percentage that is tolerable to the folks. You know, there are a lot of people that are struggling, and we have to recognize that. And it's a really interesting dynamic being in the village, because we do offer these services that is unique to the village that a lot of other municipalities and entities don't have to entertain. We have them here in the village. So many people enjoy the downtown area. There's a cost to doing that, and we have to be able to recognize that, you know. So it's a challenge. One of the things we have coming out of Albany is a mandate from the governor and from the state of New York, which says that we need to keep our tax increase to under 2% cap.
Right.
And that goes across, that's a stroke that goes across the school tax base, the town and county, as well as the village. And we last year had voted to override that for potential concerns of expenses exceeding 2%. Thankfully and gratefully, I don't believe we've had to use that, and it worked out. And this year it'll be another challenge as well. We want to be sure that we keep our expenses under 2%. Many folks, I'm sure, receive checks in the mail from the governor as a thank you, so to speak, for keeping the taxes under 2%, and that's great. But it's an unfunded mandate at the end of the day, and it comes back on the taxpayer, the ratepayers here in the village and the town. So we have to recognize that. So it's going to be a challenge, you know. But I think if we just all come to the table with an equal hand in it, I think we can do well with it.
That's good news.
Yeah.
As a fellow village resident.
Exactly. Absolutely.
But you know, I like I've said before, I moved up to Monroe, and you know, what was important to me was having that police protection.
Absolutely.
And having those municipal services, the municipal water and sewer. I know a lot of my friends feel just the opposite. They like living out there as far away as possible, and having their well and their septic is no problem for them. But I'm a city girl, I guess, at heart, and I like having those services, so I don't mind paying for them. But I think when government and government representatives such as yourself really understand, this is not my play money, this is not my monopoly money I can do what I like with because I have an agenda, you really feel that burden of
I do, responsibility.
I know, and because I know you personally, I know how deeply you feel that, and how strongly you feel that, and that's why I feel so good knowing that you're in that position, knowing you have ironclad ethics and a moral compass like no other, and I know that the people of Monroe agree with that, because they all turned out for you, and
they did, and that makes it a very tremendous responsibility that you need to live by, you know. And as you mentioned the code of ethics, I really believe that I was raised with a certain moral compass, and I needed to follow it in everything that I do. And as long as I did, everything be okay.
That's right.
And that's as simple as that. You know, there are times when you have to negotiate, you have to share in certain things, and you do. But I think as long as you keep the moral compass on a steady point, I think you're okay. So to your point, I agree that I believe that the folks need relief. You know, there's a burden to having all these services. I agree with you. I like turning on my tap and getting cold water, which we enjoy from our water department, and there's plentiful amounts of that, where other folks have all types of restrictions, and in the case of a blackout, don't have power to run their wells. That's an issue. We don't have that in the village, you know, and the water is delivered, and it's delivered clean and drinkable, and that's a good thing, you know, and that goes across everything else, you know. Our DPW, I can't say enough about it. My wife owns a business that you may have met, I think you know, right? In the village, and I got to tell you,
Sister Act Hair Salon,
right?
Yeah, right downtown.
Right in downtown, and it's amazing after a major snowstorm or whatever's going on. These guys are out there, they're actually taking the snow right off the sidewalk, scooping it up off the streets, allowing folks to come in, to park their vehicles, making it safe to travel in the downtown area. I can't say enough about that.
I can't either. I have to say, within an hour of a snowstorm starting, I hear that plow on my road.
Absolutely.
And I live on a really steep, dead-end street. It's tricky for them up there in that neighborhood, and they do an amazing job. So
kudos to them. Absolutely.
I give them a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
Speaking of ethics and morals, you did attend Monday's town board meeting.
Yes, I did.
Would you care to share any thoughts about that debacle?
Well,
it was a disaster of a meeting.
My initial intent for being there, as you know, Dennis McWaters was sworn in. Dennis is a good friend of mine. We ran together for town office in 2011. And I think the world of him. I think he has a very strong moral compass as well.
Agreed.
And I really enjoy his friendship and his professional advice. So I was there to support him and to support our United Monroe candidate on all points, and support the community. but more people that are there, the more message I think is sent on a regular basis, and I think that's what a lot of what has done. I think they put a spotlight on something that needed to be looked at, and it's kept the light on it. As far as Monday night went, I was there to support Dennis. It was the first seating for him, and unfortunately he was pretty sick. So he was
Yeah,
kind
he
of
was
quiet.
under the weather.
But you know what? He hit the ground running. I give him a lot of respect for that. It's important that people know that we are here for the people. This is not about us, and it's not about our agendas, and it's not about our personal this and that. It's about the folks, and Dennis is going to see to that. And unfortunately, there were times in that meeting that. You just shook your head and took a deep breath. I was so sure. I was so sure, honestly, that there was going to be some sort of a turn. I really did, and there was to certain degrees. But I think the dysfunction sometimes it just exhausts me.
I know it is exhausting.
And I actually, after a certain amount, I just left.
Yeah,
I just
there's
left.
just so much we can all take of these meetings. And for the people at home who want to know what we're referring to, it was a town board meeting, and it was an organizational meeting, and 3 of the current sitting town board members, much to the dismay of many of the people in Monroe, have not been representing all of the people of Monroe fairly and honestly, and it's been one of the main reasons for the formation of the organization, United Monroe, to restore accountability and transparency and civility to the town and to ethics to the town of Monroe, and we were very glad to have had some small part in supporting your election for village trustee and for Dennis McWaters.
Absolutely.
And we have about 30 seconds left, so. And this 30 minutes went by so quickly, didn't it?
Wow, it sure did. Yeah.
So, thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time. I really do. Hopefully, people get to see this and feel like they're engaged and will continue to be engaged and to come out and vote. It is so important. That is the biggest civic duty an American has, and that is to vote. Don't ever forget or take it for granted. It is so important today.
Those are such good final words, Neil. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.